Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is 10 past 1 in the morning, and for some reason, right, I'm awfully tired, which for most of you, right, will sound plausible because of the timestamp I put on the video, because of the timestamp of when I'm recording this video. But for me, that's rather odd because I'm usually up at this time, at this hour, early in the morning, because I'm currently working nights, so that's just a byproduct of that, let's say. Really matters less. I'm joining you here today with a cup of green because think about the environment, and today I'm going to introduce to you the beginning of one new project. Yes, indeed, it's probably going to be the last or second to last project before the 365 mark, which is incredible, which is exciting, which means that this specific project will probably stretch for a while. Yes, indeed it will, because there are many videos in which we will go through and ask basically the same questions over and over and over again, but in different contexts, in different situations, in different scenarios, yielding completely different experiences and answers. Now, of which I am talking is we are going to look into genres. Yes. Over the course of the upcoming week, and probably the upcoming 1.5 week or something along those lines, we are at this channel going to look at what could probably be described to be the most abstract and unconnecting, so to say, topic and project to date of this channel when it comes to what I generally talk about, and that is different genres when it comes to making books, videos, film, etc, etc, etc. Each and every video will basically follow the same form of structure. I will be asking a series of questions applied to different genres. Now, these questions will be the same, however, the defining aspect of each video will be that it will be a different genre. So, for instance, I can ask, what is the potential character growth in a crisis given this genre? How can we explore a group setting based on this genre? Or what is probably the way I would go about developing a character's interaction with its love interest given this genre so that it fits the overall overarching theme? And you all might be asking, hey Sim, why are you doing this? You generally dig deep into, or at least I would consider myself to do so thank you very much, imaginative voice and imaginary voice, but into business and psychological behavior and sort of, you know, just things that turns out boils down to being a decent human being, such as, you know, racism and sexism, pretty bad and stuff like that. Why are you looking into genres, especially when it comes to books and movies and series? Well, there are a couple of different reasons why. First of all, in my past days, so to say, in previous years, I've actually been writing quite a few books. I've been writing some of them to the end, so to say, all the way through. I've started some, I've started a lot actually, and sometimes I've even just written chapters standalone because I like to write a lot. I also watch a lot of movies and a lot of series, which will be sort of the byproduct and the side focus of this entire project and the reason behind why. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because over the next coming year, given that I know that I can manage to do one video each and every single day, probably, right? I think we're close enough for me to establish that that is probably what's gonna happen, right? I believe that I can pick up yet another project of mine that I want to focus on, and maybe I will do that simultaneously as making videos and having a daily upload schedule. Maybe I will prioritize this new project in favor of doing YouTube videos. Who really does know, right? But there will be a very concrete video out about that fact in a couple of weeks. I think it's in 3 weeks time on a Sunday, the 26th. Oh yeah, I've already scheduled out all of the videos that I want to do for the final week, and it's a bit of a tease right now, but it's gonna be a good one, at least I believe so. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this, yet again, is because I want to fully explore, and this is going to be on the basis of me and myself alone, how I would go about exploring different characters in different genres, right? Because if I want to pick and write a book, I would probably like to familiarize myself with some of the genres out there. How can I be writing a character in this genre? How would that be different from this genre? What sort of adventures would we go on? What sort of obstacles would they be presented with? And what form of, what you would say, solution would we find in a way that fits with the overarching theme of the genre, so to say? And I know, already before we begin, most of you, probably not, but many of you at least, will probably be saying like, hey, it doesn't really matter. Why not just start off with the set of characters, or one character, or however many you want to join in, right? And just start writing, pour out your mind and your imagination, and just make it fall into the category in the genre that it does, which is a splendid, what you would say, opportunity to go from that sort of point of view. And it's also a splendid way of writing a book, because you might not necessarily find yourself in the genre that you want to be, even if you start out with that genre in mind, because sometimes you will have a twist of your own, your imagination will taint it, and then you will tend to shift the genre over the course of time without you actually realizing it. So it will end up in a very different place, no matter what your initial intentions were, because that's just how your storytelling technique tended to progress over the course of the book, over the course of the series, over the course of whatever project that you want to do. And I fully acknowledge that as a possibility, as an opportunity of how going about writing a book could actually work out, right? I acknowledge that I could probably do that if I really wanted to. However, what I want to do with this project personally, right, is that I want to see these different genres. I want to have a bit more of a deep dive into these different genres. And I thought, why not just, two birds, one stone, throw in a daily video for each of the different genres that I'm currently interested in and that I want to have a further look into, and ask the same questions in order to get a sort of control variable, a control question for what I'm going to evaluate the different genres from. I think it's a very good approach, actually, in order to handle, different interpretation and different aspirations of what I might do, and different, what you would say, aspirations of what I would imagine myself to be doing with the genre, with the book based on which genre I'm actually going into. So I thought that was going to be sort of an interesting approach, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we are going to look into over the next coming days. We're going to, just to summarize, look into different genres of books, series, and movies. So to say, it could be action, could be drama, could be, can't come up with any other on top of my head here, but there's gonna be a few, right? And ask the same questions to all of them, and see what sort of answers comes out on the other side. Now, obviously, as I've already explored, it could very well be the case that I just disregard all of that information I will try to uncover over the upcoming days, and instead I will just be focusing on writing a story and see, sort of, it's gonna turn out where it's gonna turn out, that sort of way. But I still believe it's going to be beneficial to have looked at these different genres and sort of evaluated them by myself, on my own accord, in my own way, in order to find the inspiration of how I'm going to go about developing the format, no matter if I qualify myself to be within a certain category to begin with or not. So that's sort of my reasoning behind the entire thing. Now, I can say though, the one thing I'm afraid of, right, is that I haven't finalized the questions yet. And I have until tomorrow to do so. I have a few, right, but I haven't really finalized them. I think that there is still room for improvement, but yet again, there always will be, right? Most likely, at least. And what I'm most afraid of is that I'm going to do, like, let's say 3 or 4 videos, 3 or 4 days, with the certain amount of questions, and then on the 4th day, I'm going to realize that, oh my world, I've disregarded this one question that is so good. I really want to look into this question, right? And then I, need to sort of have the feeling that I need to redo all of the previous videos with that question in mind as well. So that's probably the biggest concern with doing this, is that I will look back and be like, wow, why didn't I add to this with these genres? Why didn't I try to explore that? Also, by the way, a further reason for why I'm doing this is because I've realized personally, right, that I learn a great deal from doing these raw format presentation discussionary videos. There are a lot of perspectives that I come up with on the spot when I'm pressured in front of a camera, so we can say quote unquote pressure because I can retake this at any time. But still, going off script, not having a script to begin with, certainly sparks my creativity, my imagination, my sort of piquing interest in how I'm going to go about and discussing a project. And sometimes that interest and that peak in creativity just brings out perspectives I haven't considered before, even though I might have been thinking about the video for weeks and weeks upon ends. And then once I'm standing there, I'm like, I haven't thought about this. This is brilliant, let's do this. So that's also a reason for why I chose to sort of elaborate on it and try to execute it in the way that we will do. Anyway, mates, have a nice one. That's everything for the introductionary video. However, we're going to go on with a bit of a bonus round. Yes, because today I heard something that was just absolutely ludicrous. However, before that, I'm just going to add in a short context story, right? A fun little anecdote about that. Last year, I started this channel with having one of my mates coming over in a, what you would say, crucial point in the development time of the channel. The first few videos, one can argue back and forth of how crucial that really is, but I would imagine that would change and shape the course of the trajectory that I was going to make with the channel, which it sort of did, I would argue. And it's sort of funny that being in such a delicate state and still having a roommate, let's say, staying over, that wasn't the plan to begin with. Over an extended period of time, and now in recent, you know, in a few days, I will have another mate coming over and staying just for a few nights. Though, no, we're not talking a month here, but just for a few nights, and it's going to be in a time where I am plagued with extensive production. We're not just talking about videos here, we're talking about moving, we're talking about packing everything down, we're talking about working long hours, we're talking about going out to the gym, we're talking about being social and saying goodbye to everyone because I'm going to move away from here. There are so many projects up and running on the go that I have to deal with, and on top of that, one of my mates is coming here to stay, which is going to take up a considerable amount of my time. Anyhow, you should make time for your friends, otherwise you will probably lose them, right? So I'm not saying I wouldn't like them to come. I would. 1 time fresh, because I'm holding down. So 2 times fresh for that. Absolutely bloody enjoy it. However, the second thing that I would just like to take up is something that was ran by me today. It was sort of an opinion that I heard, and I'm just gonna read this off my off my phone because I thought it was so interesting to see, and I'm just gonna read this off straight up. It is just ludicrous to me, some of the things people say and think. I recently heard someone say, and that is today, that they were afraid of that not everyone in Sweden is able to speak Swedish. Yes. Let me just weigh in on that. What is it that makes you so afraid of that? And they said, well, we're losing Sweden. And to which I answered, well, what is a nation if not the people who actually live within it? Right? Just think about that for a moment. Take a sleeper on that, because think about it. What is a nation if not the people who are in the nation? They're probably the ones defining the nation, and with a, you know, diversified cultural background, Sweden is going to be changing. As long as there is people in the nation, it won't be lost. It's my sort of opinion here. It's my sort of concern. Or not concern, but my answer to this. It may change to be sure, but it won't be lost. And hey, who is that to say that change is such a bad thing to begin with? But even in England, they have a similar problem where the Daily Mail will ever so often write an article, we're talking a bloody article in a news piece, right? About the fact that the second language in their country is X, Y, or Z. Spoiler alert, in the UK, the second language is always going to be a foreign language. Yeah, I guess I just think that it's such a non-issue to begin with, so why even bringing it up? And for people to say that they're afraid of the fact, it just blows my mind. I think that the point I'm trying to get across here is that people seem to be afraid, and I can't really pinpoint what that source of contempt and what makes them afraid to begin with really comes from when it comes to, oh, not everybody in Sweden speaks Swedish, and you know, the second language in an English-speaking country is going to be a foreign country to the Swedish, you know, to English, which is probably the same in Sweden, even though I would argue we probably have English as our, you know, universally second language, because everybody's quite good with English in Sweden to various degrees, right? But we all know it, right? On a basic level at least. So I would argue that English is the second language in Sweden. But the third one though is always going to be, you know, it's probably not going to be Swedish, right? We can probably rule that one out. And at least if the third language in our country is Swedish, then I wouldn't mind. Really, I mean, I'm not the biggest sucker for culture and stuff like that. I'm very changeable, right? I'm very flexible. I like change, which is not always a good thing. But in this particular instance, I could. It's so weird to me. I might be missing a huge thing, right? And if I do, please be informing me in the comment section below. The only thing I can come up with, right, and this is me trying to really bridge my perspectives, is that people are insecure in who they are, right? So they want to be in a place, in a situation where they need to think the least, because that means they're less stressed and less insecure, and they sort of want to rely and, you know, lay back on a language that they know. And if they find themselves in an already stressful situation in the country where they think that they are very relaxed in comparison to abroad, and they still don't understand what people say, that can only add on to the amount of insecurity and anxiety that they feel. However, I would argue that's an individual's own problem, and probably not something that should dictate the behavior of how, why, and where society is going. It's just my opinion, right? I'm not saying we should disregard the individual. I'm just saying we should probably deal with that anxiety, that insecurity, and that problem in a good old, you know, in a good fashion, in a good intuitive way, instead of trying to shut out immigration, because that's basically, right, where this entire discussion stemmed from. That, oh, you know, it started off with something sort of not so harmful, quote unquote, with, you know, I can't believe that not everybody in Sweden is speaking Swedish, and then it just quickly ran out of control and being like, yeah, we shouldn't allow immigrants into Sweden. And I'm just standing there like, but what about the workforce though? What about the potential workforce though? If there's anything we should stop doing, it's stop having children and increase the amount of immigration we have, because then we don't need to spend that awful lot of time educating people for 18, 19, sometimes 20, 25 years, and just throw in people who can actually start working. It makes so much more sense to have immigration than having your own kids. Yeah, there's probably a lot more factors to take into that entire discussion in order to make a valid point, but you sort of guess that, you sort of see that that is equally as ludicrous as saying that we should stop having immigration because not everybody in Sweden speaks Swedish. At least I think so, right? Hopefully my point came across there and I don't look like a racist turd or a fascist piece of shit, because that wasn't my intention, right? So, yeah, have a nice one, mates, and I'm gonna fully end it here. It was just some things I felt like I had to get off my chest, right? Have a nice one, mates, and see you. Bye.